And we are back with some more of the WWSY in the 10-year anniversary special for this channel. We are coming off year number 3 where the champions were the Christmas Elf Rings. So far it has been Nova Scotia, Salt Lake City, and the Christmas Elf Rings. We are going to be using the percentage of talent from stats now. Just from the fact that we've gone through 3 years now, I figured the game has enough data to work with for this. So we're going to start with 25 on percentage of talent from stats, but I will edit as needed. Besides that, I don't think there's anything else that needs to be done, so let's advance up to the draft. Then we'll take a look at the first round. Oh, looks like we got a pretty big trade here. Brendan DeMaine to the Christmas Elf Rings in exchange for Brandon Taylor and a second-round pick to the Supernovas. All right, let's see the draft log here. First overall to the checking lines will be Ernest McGrusick. Then to the Salt Lake City Lakers, you have Maximilian Hager. To the Tokyo Katanas, you have George Patterson, very good defensively. And then to the Wolfsburg Wolves, you have Ilya Lemashevsky. Then to the Salt Lake City Lakers, you have Jeff Muirhead. And to the Fargus Holy Knights, you have Tim Vo. To the Wolfsburg Wolves, you have Dark Poulon. So Wolfsburg's picking twice in the first round here. And to the Halifax Tugboats, you have Chris White. To the Atlantic City Boardwalk Bullies, you have Braden Schwarzenberg. And to the Christmas Elf Rings, you have Dave Scott. And that rounds out the first round. Oh, we have another big trade here. Steve Henryan goes to the Nova Scotia Supernovas in exchange for Jonathan O'Ma and Chris Young to the Tokyo Katanas. Ooh, another pretty big deal here. Patrick Shockley goes to the Tokyo Katanas along with a 6th-round pick in exchange for Carter Burke and Juhani Kosonen to the Fargus Holy Knights. Ooh, Remy Texier, the star young center for the Halifax Tugboats, out for 3 months to start the season. James Curry and Noah Bodenman go to the Halifax Tugboats in exchange for Nathan Lyford to the Atlantic City Boardwalk Bullies. Here's a look at Lyford. Here's a look at Curry. Very good defensively. And Bodenman, a pretty solid two-way defenseman, it looks like, despite his age, 38 years of age. Oh, we have another trade here. Andre Pervushin goes to Seattle along with Arturas Kvederas. And then to the checking Lions, you have Alexander Yazerski. As you look at Yazerski, very good offensively. Pervushin, also very good offensively. Ivan Furzin of the Nova Scotia Supernovas out for 3 months. That's a big player to lose for them. 4-star talent. Oh, we have another trade here. Kevin Zook to the checking Lions in exchange for Thomas Krobot to the Wolfsburg Wolves. And let's take a look at the standings halfway through the season. The Christmas Elf Rings leading the way with 85 points and 26 regulation wins. And then outside the playoffs currently are the Salt Lake City Lakers and the Wolfsburg Wolves. Now let's take a look at the scoring race. Currently you got Portnenko sitting there with 56 points, only 15 goals, so a lot of assists there. Cunningham, Tincher, Brandstrom, Issa Zanley followed up. Where is he? Where's Keaton? He's all the way down here in 39th? Really? Oh, he's only played 17 games though. He must have gotten injured to start the season or something. Let's see. Yeah, he hasn't played since mid-November. Yeah, 115 days for a fractured knee on November 13th. That is unfortunate. So it looks like Keaton won't be at the top of the list this year. That is for sure. Especially not with talented guys like Brandstrom and Portnenko right there. And it looks like Ross Caldwell is headed to the Halifax Tugboats in exchange for Patrick Martusek and Dorinel Roselle. What? Buddy Elfring was moved? I thought I gave him a no-trade clause. Did he waive it? He must have waived his no-trade clause. Yeah, he waived his no-movement clause in order to go to the Seattle Emeralds. That is an absolute... That's a criminal offense right there. So Buddy Elfring gets traded from the team that was named after his father and goes to the Seattle Emeralds in exchange for Patrice Grayson, who is now with the Christmas Elf Rings. Let's see. Any other big trades during the trade deadline here? Arwood Hauser goes to the Elf Rings in exchange for a 3rd-round pick to Salt Lake City. Michael Verana also goes to the Elf Rings, so looking to stack up, although I don't know in that case why they would have traded the literal face of their franchise. All right, so here is a look at the league standings. The Atlantic City Boardwalk Bullies finished first with 154 points and 47 wins in regulation, followed up by the Halifax Tugboats with 151 points. Then the Christmas Elf Rings with 148, the Seattle Emeralds with 120, the Nova Scotia Supernovas and Tokyo Katanas with 115 each, the Fargus Holy Knights in 7th with 113, the Wolfsburg Wolves with 91, and then outside the playoff picture are the Salt Lake City Lakers with 89 points and the Checking Lions with 86. So here is a look at the playoff bracket. You have Wolfsburg versus the Atlantic City Boardwalk Bullies, the Fargus Holy Knights versus the Halifax Tugboats, the Tokyo Katanas versus the Christmas Elf Rings, and the Nova Scotia Supernovas versus the Seattle Emeralds. And before we get into the playoffs, let's take a look at the player stats for the season. So no one scored 100 points this year. Bob Cunningham was the closest with 99 in 82 games played, followed up by Portnenko with 93, 88 for Tincher, 77 for Kopetsky and this is Zanley, 75 for Davies, 67 for Brandstrom and Lutsenko, 66 for Corns, and 65 for Huff round out the top 10. Now look at goaltenders. Fowler of the Halifax Tugboats leads the league with a .923 save percentage in 46 games played, and 7 shutouts as well, which is followed up by Onofriev of the Salt Lake City Lakers with a .923 save percentage and 4 shutouts in 48 games played. Then you have Kuhn of Seattle in 34 games played with a .922, a .920 for Cannon of the Elfrings in 55 games played, and for Bues of the Tokyo Katanas, a .917, which is also tied by Nielsen of the Checking Lions and Mark Carroll of the Nova Scotia Supernovas. Let's see who scored the most goals on the season. That would be the Atlantic City Boardwalk Bullies with 3.33, and the least goals against, also the Atlantic City Boardwalk Bullies with a 2.44. Looks like they might be one of the favorites going into these playoffs. And the best power play, the Atlantic City Boardwalk Bullies with the 22.7, and the best penalty kill, the Nova Scotia Supernovas with an 85.7. With that, let's see who wins the playoffs of year number 4. And it will be our first back-to-back championship of the series, and that would be the Christmas Elfrings, who win it once again, passing the Tokyo Katanas in round number 1, the Halifax Tugboats in round number 2, and the Atlantic City Boardwalk Bullies in the final. So here's a look at the final bracket. The Boardwalk Bullies beats the Wolfsburg Wolves in 5. The Tugboats beat the Fargus Holy Knights in 7. The Christmas Elfrings swept the Tokyo Katanas, and the Seattle Emeralds beat Nova Scotia in 6. The Christmas Elfrings beat Halifax in 5. The Atlantic City Boardwalk Bullies sweep Seattle. And then, of course, the Christmas Elfrings win in 7 over Atlantic City. And then the Halifax Tugboats win the 3rd place game over Seattle. And now look at the playoff stats. You have Kopetsky leading the way for Halifax with 22 points in 17 games played, followed up by Davies, also of Halifax, with 21, 18 for Keaton, 17 for Corns and Cunningham, 17 for Lively as well, 15 for Hullock, 14 for Hinman and Ball, and then 13 for Tincher and Lessard. And let's see goalies. You have a .931 save percentage for McCormack in 16 games played, a .923 for Cannon in 16 games played as well for the Elfrings, and in 17 games played for Fowler, a .913, a .909 for Kuhn in 15 games played. And time for the awards ceremony. For the most points, you have Bob Cunningham of the Elfrings, who of course had 99. The goal scorer award goes to Radim Kopetsky. He had 40 goals on the season. The goals against award goes to Nate McCormack of the Atlantic City Boardwalk Bullies. The best defensive defenseman goes to Matt Corns, also of the Atlantic City Boardwalk Bullies. And the best captain, Kaksangir Isazanli of the Nova Scotia Supernovas. For the MVP between Portnenko, Lively, and Cunningham, it is Bob Cunningham of the Christmas Elfrings. The playoff MVP is Dave Lively of the Christmas Elfrings. The Rookie of the Year between Dave Scott, Dean Fowler, and Maximilian Hager, it is Dave Scott of the Christmas Elfrings. They're taking home a lot of hardware this year. The Defenseman of the Year between Dave Lively, Buddy Elfring, and Matt Corns, it is Matt Corns of the Atlantic City Boardwalk Bullies. So not only is he the best defensive defenseman, he is also the best defenseman overall. And best defensive forward between Andrew Marshall, Nathan Lyford, and Patrice Grayson, it is Nathan Lyford of the Atlantic City Boardwalk Bullies. The goalie of the year between Onofriev, Fowler, and Cannon, it is Dean Fowler of Halifax with a .923 save percentage and 7 shutouts in 46 games played. GM of the year between Lang, Sapunjis, and Collins, you have Dave Collins of the Christmas Elfrings, and between Lubin, Childs, and James, for the best coach, it is Roy Childs of the Christmas Elfrings. All right, so that is it for year number 4. Certainly an interesting year, but we have our first back-to-back champions in the Christmas Elfrings. Let's see if they can do it a 3rd time, or will there be a new champion in year number 5?